Hello. Let's just wait for people to get in here so we can get the latest of everything here. Give me a second here. Yeah, there we go. Just gonna tweet something real quick. Hello. There we go. All right. Well, there are lots of things happening. Kim Jong, the man, the legend. We'll wait for people to get in here. Let's start the news, of course, but just want to wait for people to get in here, and so we can talk about it all here. But it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I got one of the greatest, well, the weirder news here. We're gonna have to take a look at this. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening today. Actually, there's a lot of good stuff and some bad stuff. Apparently, there's been lots of attack throughout the day. We're talking drone attacks. We're talking all kinds of things that is not great. But the reason why my title is so is because not only has the U.S. just signed its deal with the 86 hello with Ukraine to deliver ATACMS to Ukraine, and not only that, but Ukraine is also set to receive F-16 as early as December. So this is great news coming in here. Poland is also not as much receiving, but they are actually being given. Well, not sorry. They're buying a lot of stuff lately. They've been buying a lot of stuff. I mean, it's insane. You have to compile a list of what Poland's been buying from the U.S. It's up in the billions. We're probably closing in on like the 20-30 billion mark in military equipment alone, which is a lot, and it includes attack helicopters. I think it was Patriot systems. I think it was anti-air guns. All kinds of things, and it was insane. And they bought it, massive amounts of it. So, the amount of time in when the U.S. would be able to actually get that to Poland is, of course, unsure. I would imagine it was going to take a little while. I mean, that much, even the best of the best is going to take a little while for people to get that there. So, yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, the Kremlin, by the way, has confirmed that the information that the leader of the DPRK, North Korea, Kim Jong-un, will visit... Who the fuck says DPRK? Just say North Korea. Will visit Russia in the near future of an official visit. The press service of Kremlin writes this about the Telegram channel. And this was... something we've known. I've seen a report earlier today stating that there was going to be this visit from the North Korean president tomorrow. Sorry, not tomorrow, the 13th of September, which is in 2 days, and it lines up well with the ideologies. Lines up well with the fact that the Russians are now appearing to be ready to receive North Korean aid, and not only that, but it also appears that the Russians are going to be helping the North Koreans. And now, how do you think? What kind of levels do you think the Russians could be able to help them out? And we're talking economically, sure, but food-wise, Russia is not a first world country, but it does have food, and people aren't necessarily starving. Not all of them, right? And so, the amount of delivery that North Korea could get from the food, North Korea were able to feed its citizens, at least in its, bigger parts, right? Which, in exchange, I think, for arms deals, arms development deal, technology, all that stuff, North Korea, of course, doesn't contain technology that the Russians want, but, the other way around as well. So, yeah. Vladimir Zelensky met with the foreign affairs of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, Lena Baerbock. We discussed our defense cooperation, the protection of civilians, life in Ukraine, in particular our energy industry, which remains a target for Russian terror. We also discussed our European integration progress in implementing the recommendations of the European Commission, the President wrote. This is pretty ominous. So we can see that the President is writing in all of its, you know, that a lot of stuff happening. There was just talked about how the North Korean could possibly, the Germans could commit a, not directly a defense contact, but I think it was that the Germans were ready to build a wind farm in Ukraine eventually around a nuclear power plant. You know, sort of a weird thing, but I think that's you know, we're talking about the further development. This is a perfect time for Ukraine to, while rebuilding, also trying to rebuild in the most, you know, cleanest ways, and, you know, put them ahead of the curve when it comes to not only their nuclear, their clean environment, but you know, sustainable electricity may be something that's going to take a while to, you know, re-implement in Ukraine. Therefore, you know, I wouldn't say temporary, but things like windmills and how would you say, like things like windmills and solar power plants, all that stuff, you know, which we could implement and all. Yeah, so it's a lot, and it's cool, and it's great. So yeah, it's all gonna be talked about, of course, and they're gonna look into it. There's all these funds now, which actually is a great thing that we're seeing now. A lot of people talk about delivering funds for rebuilding Ukraine, which is something that wasn't talked about before now. You know, before now, everyone wasn't talking about like the whole ideology behind delivering money to Ukraine so they could rebuild. They were all about, you know, the ideas behind doing war. Now most of the things they get in are on more than just doing war. It's actually the ideas of a rebuilding of a rebuilding what is Ukraine. You know, what was once Ukraine, and I think that's great. I really do. There's some other stuff here. Lukashenko opens PMC guard service for Wagner soldiers. All Wagneteers in Belarus who did not want to sign a contract with the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation and go to war in Ukraine were offered to join Lukashenko PMC guard service. Guard service, right? Yeah, because they're obviously going to need a guard service. For what? You know, what guard are you talking about? What defense are you talking about? You're not at war. I just pointed it out, you know, you're not at war. That's one thing, right? So, on the border of Poland and Belarus, Polish border agents used live gunfire to hurt African and Middle Eastern migrants through the gates. That meant for animals on Belarusian soil that it is done to decrease indesirable migrants population in Poland. Will they do the same to? Yeah. Well, there was
Belarus. This is not Belarus. Belarus. This is not Poland. Understand? You go. This is yes, Belarus. Slav Belarus.
on the border of Poland, the Polish border agents use live fire to gun her, which I don't understand what he's doing right here. So he's yelling at this guy.
Belarus. This is not Belarus. Belarus. This is not.
Did the agent did that guy go through the fence?
Poland. Understand? You go. This is yes, Belarus. Slav Belarus. Slav Belarus.
Great camera work there, dude. They shoot the guy. Oh shit, he's pointing a gun at him. I have on a good authority that I believe that it may be the other way around. I doubt the factor that the Polish are shooting at immigrants. I have on good authority known that this is Belarusian tactics to fire upon what is immigrants. And while people do note that Poland has increased its brutality when it comes to the immigrants, I would say that's also a bit false, because the Belarusians who are initially sending them across have had multiple records of violating, the sanctity of the immigrants. They've on multiple records broken the rules of the ideology of immigrants seeking refugees. Have harassed, they have shot them, they have actually done exactly what you see in that video there. Now he's pointing out that this is Belarus, not Poland, which seems weird to me, how there's a Polish border guard that then crossed into Belarus. To me, I don't really see what's going on right there. I don't know if they were firing through the fence. I don't know what the hell they were doing there, or what that guy was trying to prove. But it has certainly seems to me either that was Polish soldiers firing at immigrants, and I'm not sure if that's something that they've done. They certainly need to rewrap their immigrant policies, because while it is important to maintain your sovereignty, to ensure that we don't to ensure that the Belarusians simply doesn't throw all these immigrants at the borders of the EU just as a deterrent measure or something like that. We need to ensure that while it's annoying, we still have obligations to I wouldn't say particularly take these people in. That's something that you may have to look at later, but there's an obligation that you have to treat them with any human rights as you have. But that's the code of conduct. That's what it says. So it's weird, whoever does it. I have a good 40, I believe it's the Belarusians that are firing on those immigrants right there, but because the uniforms they're wearing is very Belarusian. The Polish border guards are usually wearing quite formal uniforms. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird situation. Anyways, let's talk about something else here. Now, you see, from yesterday, 2 days ago, this is 1 day ago, there's been some frontline pushes here. It's actually quite an impressive push here from the Ukrainians. As you can see, they've now managed to put the Russians at a defense of, I think this is there's a village here, which they're perhaps defending right now. You see, these are the latest updates. Now, I was talking about this occurring yesterday. On the 9th, this happened where the Russians broke through what appears to have been a line of defense and pushed the Ukrainians back a tiny bit there. But it also appears to me that the Ukrainians have given them the business and pushed them back down here. Although, my biggest worry was that the side of this defense could collapse. It is a hard-fought battle here. It is an extremely hard-fought battle. We're talking about, this is quite a big land bridge as well. I mean, there's quite a lot of land here that they've taken back. We're talking about an 8-kilometer line here. It's not thin, which is great. We're not talking about, the Belarusians being able to just back their way in through this line here. And we got, what we got here was your official. We got like a 9-kilometer stretch, maybe at a 9.2 kilometer stretch there, which is the area that they're trying to defend. But the factor is, all this area right here has to be defended, and there was pushes from the Russians, as you can see yesterday. I was talking about this actually being quite a dangerous situation, because you have to imagine to yourself what happens if they actually break through a line here, because the more the Ukrainians push in, the more manpower they may have to initiate over here, because the Russians realize they still have the upper hand in the encirclement ideology, because the more men the Ukrainians commit to fighting in this bulk right here means that it's gonna, wear down those Ukrainian troops. And now we have, these 200,000 conscripts coming into the Russian line on the Russian side. You know, it's going to be a dangerous battle here because even the shittiest of the shittiest, when you throw about a 300-man thousand force at something or anything really, you know, it's hard for anybody to really fight that off, you know, especially if you're an outstretched front line as the Ukrainians. If they're continuing to push in, they really need a lot of men to defend their sidelines. So does the Russians, by the way. You know, the reason why you see the Russians are here, you know, fighting back in these places here is because while they are able to move, if they move just a tiny bit or trying to go to the other side, the Ukrainians are just going to use that as advantage to break through immediately. So they're also kind of in a lockdown positions down here. You know, these are the heavily fortified defenses that the Ukrainians are hoping to get across. When they do get across that, it's going to be an easier battle, certainly. But they're going to need that land bridge, and that's what they're making here. They're making this land bridge, you know, between these fence lines here. They need to make this right here happen. They need to break through the lines so they can create a land bridge where they can send, you know, 100,000 troops through, so they can get behind enemy defenses and push on open ground, which is going to be where the Ukrainians with their massive modern tanks and everything, you know, artillery is going to reign supreme, and with their F-16s coming in, you know, fighting that ground battle on an open field where there's going to be basically no defenses for the Russians, are going to be a battle that's certainly going to be won by the Ukrainians. But until then, they really have to be careful not to commit too much to the front and commit to being able to hold this as long as possible so that the front line here can hopefully break through, you know. But it also means that you're having, I don't know how many men are at the line right here. We're maybe looking at estimates of what I've heard, maybe 200, 300,000. It's a large part. I don't know if it's even that. I mean, it may just be less, or maybe 100,000, right? But it is quite a larger part of the Ukrainian army, and it's a lot of artillery equipment in this area alone here. So it's a hard fought battle, you know, one in which I hope the Ukrainians are certainly going to reign supreme. Although I will say the ideas right now is that the Ukrainians, you know, they really have to be careful not to overstretch their lines. Because even with the best of the best equipment and the best soldiers, if there is, you know, 1 soldier to 10 Russians, yes, I get that 1 Ukrainian NATO-trained soldier might equal these 10 Russians, but you got to imagine that the more you stretch out line, the more it's going to be hard to keep that line going, because this line right here is going to be a hard-fought battle. Right here is probably one of the deadliest areas in this war as of right now. Over here as well is where we've seen a mass concentration of Russian troops along the here in Donetsk, which is an area here that they have managed to carve out a very desperately held area. As you can see, this area right here is very desperately held. This is the last land bridge. You know, if the Ukrainians break these lines right here, or at least these ones right here, they are going to be able to break through and actually break in to the Donetsk region, which is one of the areas that the Russians have held since 2014. So, you know, you got to imagine that this is sort of not just a military strategic target. Just at this point, this area right here, Donetsk, is a memorial. How could you put it? You know, a centerpiece of the Russian advances here, that they get to be able to keep Donetsk area, Kharkiv as well, you know. And these conscripts, which we're talking about in the end of November, they're talking about having, actually, you know, I think it's the 1st of November or something like that. They're talking about having these conscripts driven up, which we got September, October, November, right? So they have about these 2 months here, which have been constantly. We had the letter here from the defense minister. I don't know if I can find it, but the defense minister Shirky, he made the letter. No, it wasn't the defense minister. It was the commander-in-chief, you know, the guy, the Russian commander-in-chief, a general who made that order to get these 200,000. They really have to be careful that the Russians aren't going to start amassing troops here and then make a big push trapping the Ukrainians. That's my, you know, at this moment where I'm worried, you know, Because if the Russians are waiting for the Ukrainians to simply spread so far into this area here, that if the Russians break through up here, it's going to be such a it's going to be hard to be able to retreat, which is going to be a hard battle there. But I don't think that's going to happen. But it's something that's been weighing on my mind. I haven't had the fullest confidence in this idea here, but also, you have to imagine that the reason why they're doing this is because they want to break through these defensive lines here so they can get on the other side of these massive fortifications that the Russians have put down. They have to get on the other side here so they can make this land bridge and actually push through and wreak havoc on the inside of the Russian lines here. But it's a hard fought battle. It's certainly something that I didn't expect them to go for that area. I didn't expect them to go in the middle of the Russian front lines. Certainly an area in where it's most. I don't know why. I just thought that maybe somewhere like this, lines where you don't have to fight through actually three front. I just don't get the whole idea, because there's three main defense lines here, as you can see, maybe 5 main defense lines, and this is the area that the Ukrainians have chosen and said this is where we're going to push through, instead of areas like up here where you could have easily said this is where we're going to push through, areas that are less defended. These areas right here where you could have said perhaps pushing in and then pushing here. This battle right here, it's a very open field concept right here. Taking this motorway right here, by the way, is one of the strategic roads that the Russians are using to supply troops that's coming in from Crimea. Obviously they're mostly supplied from coming out here, and one of these roads here that are usually what they use. But yeah, it's if you only have limited amount of soldiers, which is what the Ukrainians certainly lack the manpower compared to just how much the Russians are willing to throw at it. It's terrible, because the Russians don't really give a shit. The Ukrainians are actually dabbling on the factor that the Russians give a shit about how many men they throw at, but they don't. We've just seen this idea of this concept that the Russians are now calling up 200,000 more conscripts. And the Ukrainians' armed forces, I believe, is amassed at the point of 700,000, maybe close to 1 million. I'm not sure. The reports definitely said in the start of the war that the Ukrainians were able, if possible, to mass up an army on the size of 1 million. So yeah, it's a lot, but there's a lot that happens there. So yeah, I didn't expect it. I thought that maybe some areas like this, where the defenses are known to be less, could have been a viable option. I don't know why the strategic commanders of the Ukrainian army chose to fight where I believe the toughest of battles. If you're trying to prove a point and say because we're so good we can push through the hardest defense lines, things like that is sometimes just not worth proving it. I mean, I thought, maybe, I honestly, when I looked at it, I said a Kherson push, pushing the Russians completely out of Kherson and threatening Crimea could have been a strategic move that's gonna, put the Russians, on east, because if the Russians know that the Ukrainians have a complete land bridge to simply, invade Crimea, it's gonna put the Russians at such unease that they may just well, I don't know, you get it, but they could also in that area taken out the remaining Russian soldiers at the 7PP, eliminating that threat. And there's very few defenses around here, although there are scattering some sort of defenses along the roads here, as you can see. But despite that, there's very few amount of defenses, and you can actually kind of jump, island jump here, plus the river here, which used to be, the Dnipro River, is after my understanding completely, well, not completely dried up, but the area, where that is no longer as water because of the explosion that happened some time ago, and there's no longer as much water as we know that there was before. So it's, it's an easier battle. It's not that much amphibious battle anymore. And for the Russians to relocate troops that are around here, to relocate them down here, because they would be so desperate to fight to defend the Kherson region, because the Kherson region is one of the most important hubs of their strategic campaign. Because if they lose the Kherson region, they lose all this area right here, right? The not only will the Ukrainians have complete control of would have complete you know they would have a bargaining chip, certainly, saying that, oh, we're gonna move in on Crimea, which is a place that is well known to not have, obviously most of the Russian soldiers would then be marching up on the Crimean front. But that would mean that they would have they would completely close off anything coming in from Crimea, cutting off like a big part of the Russian army from actually receiving supplies. And if you then, while you were doing that in Kherson, were to make this push right here, this could be a reverse sort of engineering thing here, where they're now doing this push here to, and they're dragging it out purposely to, get as many Russians there, and then eventually, maybe go for a campaign of pushing in Kherson. I certainly think that's one of their most viable regions here. But it's something we have to look into, and I have been looking into it. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was a picture of Lewis from Family Guy, very bulked up, I would say. No, you get. All right. Well, there's been a lot of things going on here, so it is a lot of stuff. Well, let's just hope that they know what they're doing. Let's hope they know what they're doing. I hope they do. Sorry. One thing. One second. Just gotta wipe something. Spilled some water earlier. There it is, just completely full of water all of a sudden. There you go. Here it have it. Yeah, it was HIMARS systems. The Poland had just ordered 486 HIMARS systems. Yeah, that's one hell of a force of HIMARS. You wouldn't be caught. You wouldn't be caught fucking that up. Yeah, so we have Weisgard breaking moments. 9 hours. Poland says signed a framework agreement to buy 486 HIMARS systems from the U.S. The first deliveries to come in 2025. The expected price is around 10 billion, which is insane. The amount of stuff that you Polish bought from the Russians is, yeah. Next year, NATO will hold the largest military exercise since the Cold War. Financial Times. The exercise will involve 41,000 military personnel from all NATO states and Sweden. The exercise will take place in Germany, Poland, and the Baltic states. Yeah, the FT writes that the purpose of the exercise is to practice countering an invasion by the Russian Federation. The military will use real geocachal data to create some more realistic scenarios. So they're actually holding a drill on the border of Belarus and some of the Russian areas to counter a legitimate a threat of this, Russian invasion. So that's pretty, that's something, isn't it? One second. One second. All right. Well, let's get you guys the update on from Flash. We'll get you the update from Flash News here, and we'll get that on.
Så.
Yep. Volcanoes, hurricanes, and all that stuff that you're so happy to hear about is what's happening here. How are you all? Welcome in, Witchy. I am going to get you the update on Hurricane Lee that has taken a bit of a turn here the last few days. I was watching it earlier here. We're going to get you the update here on Hurricane Lee, who was tracked by this guy, the guy we love, 11 minutes here. Oh, sorry.
HOU 11 meteorologist Tim Pandages here with your
So, as I said before, by the way, it was going to get down to this hurricane level 3, which is actually where, but it's a major Hurricane Lee, right? It's at a category 3 now, so no longer a category 4. It is a category 3 now. Don't point that out.
We're mainly going to be focused on still major Hurricane Lee. And we'll touch on Tropical Storm Margot, which is actually very close to also becoming a hurricane. At the recording of this video, Lee is a Category 3 major hurricane. Now, since we last spoke on Friday, it's undergone something called rapid intensification first. It got up to a Cat 5, but then it underwent rapid weakening too. It weakened all the way down to a Category 2 briefly. Now it's back on an intensification phase. Today is Monday, September the 11th, 2023. Seems like we've been talking about Lee for quite some time. And when we look at storm lifetimes this season, of the 13 named storms we've had, Lee's only been around for 7 days. That's not really even a comparison to when we had Franklin. That was around for 13 days here. And remember Hurricane Don, the first hurricane of the season? That was around for 11 days. So Lee will be around for quite a while longer, but so far it's only been around for a week or so. Here's how it looks on the latest satellite presentation here. 120 mile per hour Category 3 major hurricane here, way out in the middle of the Atlantic, so not impacting land at this time. There's Bermuda, several hundred miles to the south there. Yeah. But on infrared satellite imagery, which is what this filter is here, tells us the temperature of the cloud tops. And this is a 12-hour loop of that infrared imagery. And you can see intermittent flare-ups of convection wrapping around and firing around that center. If we go back even farther from 12 hours, say 18 hours ago, it once again had a well-defined eye. It has lost that a little bit, but has maintained its intensity. Pressure's come up a little bit, 948 millibars, and it is moving very slowly to the northwest at 8 miles per hour, despite overall conditions being very favorable for intensification. I think it's slow movement. It's upwelling. It's doing mixing up the ocean water, so I think it's starting to upwell some slightly less favorable ocean temperatures to take advantage of that fuel there. That could be one reason why it's kind of plateaued just a little bit over the last 24 hours or so, but it is expected to strengthen once again up to a Category 4 in the next 24 hours. Look at how beautiful this system is on visible satellite imagery. You've got the spiraling outflow off to the north, the really tightened spin here, and you can see even for a time, it looks to be an eye trying to warm and clear on out there. Just overall a spectacle, a textbook-looking hurricane here, again, safely away from any land at this time. It's a very large system, too. When we talked on Friday, its diameter was around 650 miles, so it has spread out a little bit more. Latest on here is 765. And its wind field is also quite large and will be getting larger as it gains latitude. Hurricane force winds 75 miles per hour or greater extend out from the center about 65 miles. Now tropical storm force winds 39 miles per hour or greater extends out about 160 miles from the center. You're going to find the strongest winds and the further radius from the center on the northeast quadrant of the storm center at this time. Here's the latest forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. Again, right now a Category 3, 120 mile per hour winds, expected to undergo some intensification here over the next 24 hours. By tomorrow morning, up to 130 mile per hour Category 4, and then slowly beginning to weaken as it gains latitude and encounters less favorable sea surface temperatures. And
Well, you look at that right there. It's only going to be an 80 mile per hour Category 1. It's going to be wide, but it's not going to be big. And I want to check out Bermuda by there as well. Looks like Bermuda is going to be pretty much, you know, untouched by it as well, which is great.
I'm going to show you why in just a second. Now, as we get far out in that forecast cone, of course, it gets wider because confidence gets lower that far out in the forecast track, we start to see a large spread here. And I'm going to show you the computer models here that warrant this spread. But by Saturday morning, we're still at a Category 1 80-mile-per-hour winds. Now, you may be saying, well, that's much weaker than it was. Sure, it is. But its wind field at this point will be stretching out well past this cone. Keep in mind the forecast cone is where the center of Lee is forecast to track. Say it tracks a little bit farther to the west on the western periphery of this cone. That means widespread wind impacts to many major cities along
Boston,
the northeast
especially.
seaboard. Okay, keep that in mind there. If it tracks a little bit farther to the east, lesser of impact. So we still have to watch this carefully as we get out into that time frame. So the weakening phase will be brought on by slightly less favorable sea surface temperatures below 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can see as it tracks to the north here, by the time we get to the middle to end of this week, as it's pretty much due west of Bermuda, which is right there on the far eastern periphery of the forecast cone, we start to see sea surface temperatures in the upper 70s at this point. Now, what caused this? Well, we just briefly talked about it in the second slide of this presentation, is Hurricane Franklin. It moved through this area, it was around for a long time, upwelled, mixed up the ocean, and this is actually its scar in the sea surface temperature. It extracted so much energy, so much heat from the ocean that it's actually cooled it down a little bit. So Lee is forecast to track over that wake. But then keep in mind what's here. 83-degree water temperatures. This is the Gulf Stream, okay, that comes all the way along the east coast and then jets out off to the east. When Lee tracks over this, I would not be surprised if we see a little bit of a spit up of some intensification briefly as it gets that very favorable waters there to really try to take advantage of. Because north of there, the yellows and greens are significantly cooler water temperatures, and we'll start to see it drastically weaken. So here are the computer models. This is what we call the ensemble. So this is a mix of the GFS, the European ensembles, and the Canadian.
Okay, so they have had uncertainties when it came to this. We're getting pretty close to being able to predict it completely here. And taking a look at it right now, you know, it is certainly going to make landfall, you know. The only way of it not making landfall would be if it takes some of these, you know, very far out predictions here, which is certainly the best options that we're going to be able to, you know, our hopes are definitely these right here, which would be a good thing to see. If it chooses to take this one, that would be pretty much the worst path it could take, over Boston, near New York, near Province, near the capital. So yeah, that would be the worst one it could take. That one, these ones as well, which also make landfall. So along this line, definitely very likely to impact near Maine, up along Halifax, which is right here in Canada.
Ensembles as well. Now, what the ensembles mean is that each line here represents those computer models, but run dozens and dozens of times, tweaking a variable to see if we get a different outcome. Notice there is a considerable spread as we get farther out in time. Remember, as I said, the cone gets wider because confidence drops. Well, this is exactly why. We've got good confidence, good consensus, good clustering of the ensemble plots. To the south, here we are, here's Bermuda. Just to the west there, very good consistency, taking it pretty much due north. As we get northwest of Bermuda, we start to see that spread. In fact, from the far eastern component here of a forecast track to the far western, that's about a 750-mile spread. And there's definitely a considerable amount of these plots that take it inland in coastal Maine and over into Nova Scotia as well as it's weakening, but its wind field is getting much larger. So the landfall location still uncertain. We've still got another 5 to 6 days that this is going to be out over the open Atlantic before it could potentially bring impacts. Cities that could see impacts.
Yeah, exactly, right there as well. So we got Portland that could see a, you know, in your mouth, St. John, Halifax, and Portland, Boston, areas that are certainly very likely to see some kind of, I'd say, you know, looking at it, 90% of the predictions are certainly impacting near Halifax, St. John, and Yarmouth. You know, Yarmouth, or how you would say, I don't know. Portland and Boston and Hartford is definitely less likely. It looks like it's only like a 10% prediction. Some of them going over there. This one as well. You know, this one as well is certainly straight over mainland USA. So, not a good stuff right there, but St. John, Halifax, you know,
Packs, of course,
to be
Boston,
by
Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, coastal Maine, up into St. John, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Notice the spread here of all these computer model ensembles. Even some take it as far off to the west as into New York City and Connecticut. Those are outliers, most unlikely to occur. The more likely scenario is somewhere in the middle here, potentially into Atlantic Canada,
Halifax,
getting into this weekend.
line,
And
right.
it all gets back to what is steering Lee. It's starting to take that northwesterly turn now because it's sensing the far western
also,
periphery.
this is one of the better things here is that we are now completely sure, when we're pretty much sure where it's going to take that turn, you know, which is good. Because, you know, when I was looking at it before, the predictions were so unclear. You know, there was some of them that was heading over here. Some of them were heading near Providence. Some of them were, you know, so close. Now, you know, they're like, okay, we know when it's going to turn. We are very certain it's going to turn here, along here, right? 100%, almost 99% sure. Again, it's up here when it starts to get unclear, and we won't get the clear answer before maybe 4 to 5 days from now. Sorry.
It's starting to take that northwesterly turn now because it's sensing the far western periphery, the weaker side of the subtropical ridge that's been steering it west its whole lifespan so far. It's going to run into a trough of low pressure developing and dipping over the southeast United States, and that's going to prevent it from going farther to the west as well. It senses that weakness in between the two pressures here and will start to turn north. How strong that high is, how strong that trough is by the time we get into mid to late week will determine how far east or west this tracks and which of these models will verify. Okay, how about the operational, just the GFS and the European models run, okay? Very good consistency with both of those models, showing a similar track, potentially just to the west of Nova Scotia here. Again, that's a compilation of all the ensembles here as it takes it off to the north. Here's a look at the wind field. So this is the GFS. Remember I talked about how the wind field as it gains latitude will be expanding? That's likely going to happen here. Look at how large the wind field is. Now the yellows is going to be where the tropical storm force wind starts to pick on up. So that's already starting to impact Cape Cod, Boston, Nantucket by later on this week on Friday, as depicted by the GFS, the American model. Now the European, slightly faster here. And we're jumping a day ahead, though, to Saturday. And here it is. Notice it's much, much closer, a little bit farther to the north and west. That would bring some very strong gusty winds to Cape Cod, the Boston area. And as it's to the southeast of Boston, we're getting those winds coming onshore, and that could be funneling in water to Boston Harbor. So keep that in mind there as we get on into that portion of time, that there could be some significant coastal flooding dependent on the exact track. Massive waves out there. There are some buoys that depicted wave heights already out in the Atlantic with Lee of over 45 feet. So just massive waves. There's Bermuda there. We've got the large waves, 20, 25, 30-foot waves as we get into Thursday, Friday, really along the entire eastern seaboard. So even though wind impacts for a large portion of the East Coast will remain east and offshore, we're still looking at the ocean impacts, meaning large waves, large swells, coastal erosion, rip current risk, higher than normal tides, likely for days to come along all of the eastern seaboard. So we've got Lee out there, we've got Margot that's right on the cusp of becoming a hurricane itself, and two other waves. We are just a day past the peak of hurricane season, which is September 10th, and you'd know it by looking at the map right now. We've got another wave here that likely has a moderate chance of developing in the next 7 days, 60%, and the next name on our list is Nigel. Here's a look on infrared for Tropical Storm Margot, 70-mile-per-hour winds, just below the threshold to become a Category 1 hurricane. And the presentation is rather impressive here, so I think it's going to get an upgrade to a Category 1 hurricane in the short term. And that's where it's forecast to stay as it drifts to the north, well to the east of Bermuda. So this should not be an issue for anybody other than ocean-going freight and traffic with that.
I
All right,
did.
here's the next name on the list I talked about, Nigel. That'll be our 14th named storm, if in fact that wave out in the Atlantic does get a name in the next couple of days. All right, that's the latest out on Lee and Margot. If you have any questions, a lot of you have reached out on social media. I appreciate it. I enjoy answering your questions. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok as well. We'll see.
Go give this guy a like in any of those social medias there. Yeah. So, that's our update when it comes to Hurricane Lee. Certainly a chance of impact in some areas, not a full-scale impact, but impact, certainly waves, high winds, and, you know, as you said, coastal, maybe even flooding. So it is very, you know, it is very, very hard to say, but you know, they're now predicting the chances of it hitting something. Yeah. Which is not great, but it is what it is, right? We can't change it. What we have to do right now is hope for the better. Now, I want to take a moment here with you people who are in here today to show you a video commemorating what happened on September 11th, 2001. A day that will go down in history as one of, I believe, America's worst days. Well, possibly the worst day of America's history. It was a terrible, terrible thing, and one that caused much suffering and long-standing rivalries that still exist to this day. I want to show you a video of some firefighters who are doing the walking 125 floors for the fallen victims of 9/11. This one here is,
right now,
this guy right here is in full firefighting gear. I believe he is a fireman. So you can see how he's sweating profoundly here, and this is just awesome to see. You know, I have another video to show you as well. So here you have it.
So right now, we're at the 36-minute mark.
46 minutes, you know, just toughest nails.
110 floors.
Look at them. They're
Big
all
Joe's
there.
still climbing.
And with the tank as well, with the oxygen tank in the back as well, that is beyond, you know, hardcore right there.
Putting in that
Great
work.
way to commemorate it. And I want to show you another video here that's gonna come up here just in a second. Another video here of some people getting ready, all firefighters, I believe as well. I will have to turn off the music because I am afraid of copyright. Sorry, but yeah. Well, actually, you know what, fuck it. But as you can see, all firefighting gearing up here. 110 floors for the 334 2023 here. A lot of firemen ready to gear up to walk these 125 or 110 steps to commemorate the fallen of 9/11. A really great testament, and they got pictures along the way as well, I think, there, of friends and family or people who was there on that fateful day. There you go. A beautiful thing, and I'd imagine that Joe Biden has tweeted something as well. 110 floors. Must be what's inside their apartment there, or sorry, you get, yeah. All right, yeah. And let's play some taps, and then we'll hold the silence until that's done. We'll play some taps, because I don't care how cringe you think it is. I'm still gonna do it. Alright, well, I'm gonna turn off the mic here, and we're gonna hold the silence until this is done. Like it or not, I like it. Yes, and that is my contribution here, and I will say that despite the fact that I'm not American, I still feel the losses that we lost that day. I wasn't even there yet, wasn't even alive yet, but still, for those who were on that fateful day, there was a movie made about it, a very emotional movie. And it was a, terrible, terrible thing. We can all agree. Despite who you are, where country you live, you should certainly pay your respects to fallen heroes on that day. Because not only did it hit Americans, it hit us all. It was a terrible, terrible thing. Now we have another thing here. Moving on with the news. Something on a little bit of a lighter side here. It's good news for the Ukrainians here. These are videos that appears to be of Russian soldiers training with a T-55A, right? That's what it's called. T-55A. With the 147, sorry. So whatever. Finish our workshop. You here now? All right. Well, I just held a silent there for the fallen heroes of 9/11 there, so you missed that. But yeah. But these are what appears to be Russian soldiers training with T-55A. Historically, one of the greatest tanks ever produced. There's beautiful. Well, thank you. Well, yeah. Well, I know some people may look at it as to be a bit cringe, but I think it was worth it, because it doesn't matter what country or where you're from. It was still human lives, and I have it on good authority that I think human lives are worth a lot more than money. And yes, it's a terrible thing. Oh well. Okay, well, as you can see, so these are T-55A, one of the most formidable. Are you stopping for the moment, side? All right. Well, great, son. Formidable tanks that you can get if we were in 1945. If we were in 1945, this tanks would have been one of the best produced tanks in the world. But we're not. We're in fucking 2023. This is a World War II tank. T-55A came into service in the final days of World War II, 1945. It is above 80 years old, and the Russians are training with it now. The armament on this tank, compared to a modern day Leopard 2, would be so shit that it would be like sitting inside a tin can expecting the bullet not to go through. Those are, yeah. It's just sad. I mean, you know, for the human lives, again, these Russian soldiers who appears to have been training on this. I don't know if these are going into combat. This is a verified. This video is not from like days ago. There's a very recent video. So I don't know if this is for a memorial thing or if this is for a commendation. But the factor is that how could this be? Because the Russian World War II commemoration, celebration thing was months ago. This is not. They're not nearing that celebration, as far as my knowledge goes. I mean, I'll search it up. Let me just 1 second here. The 9th of May, right? Celebrating this, yeah, May 9th. That's months ago. We're not nearing the month of the May 9th. This is a fleet, not even it's 5 T95 55A tanks that was produced in 1945. A tank that was used by the Soviet Union for a while. If you were living in the 1950s, and this war was a thing of the 1950s, and yeah, this would have been a great thing. But no, it's not. We're in 2023. We're nearing 2024. You can't fight wars in mechanized tanks. You can't fight wars in such tanks anymore. You know, oh, he shows off how accurate the scope of these things are. Appears to be hitting some targets in the background here. I mean, they may be modified to an extent, you know, which is certainly something. But you know, they have no computer systems. They have basically nothing that makes them modern. Everything about them screams we are, you know. Don't tell them that. Oh yeah, you're right. Probably shouldn't reveal that to them. But everything about, you know, Russians showing off T-55A tank screams desperation. It screams desperation. Okay. And I have another thing here, and if it doesn't, you know, scream how much of a sad day this day can become. This is not from today, but this is a wildly spread tweet here that I wanted to share with you guys as well. Today, the Russians attacked a vehicle of international. Those are, I think. Yeah, I think it's used them on the battlefield. Yeah, shh, don't tell them. So, attack of the International Humanitarian Organization Road to Relief in Chesny Yar. Oh, sorry, I can show you. Killing 2 volunteers, the director of Road to Relief, Emma Aigal, and I think that's how you say it, and Spanish citizens who studied in the University of California, a Berkeley, and Anthony Hainat, a Canadian citizens. 2 other volunteers, both German citizens, were injured. Road to Relief efforts are entirely focused on civilian projects, the evacuation of civilians in war zone, medical evacuation, humanitarian aid distribution and to the frontline communities, and the preservation of mobile clinics that assist local residents who are unable to leave their homes. They make every effort every day to mitigate the consequences of the systematic terror of civilians by the Russian occupiers. A painful, irreparable loss. Emma and Anthony will be in our heart. If I be in our hearts, these are the pictures of the 2. So 2 humanitarian relief, road to relief workers here who went there on their own free will to assist in a horrible war. You know, the Ukrainian war. Today was commemorated for their heroism. They weren't officially, but I'd like to personally award them the mental Medal of Valor. It is one thing to fight in a war, but it is another to leave your own country to go to another country to fight along those soldiers and be a humanitarian aid who I would say in many ways does as much as a soldier does. You know, these guys are important for our society to, you know, for wars and everything, really in our society alone. And it is certainly a loss that will be felt because not only was it two smart individuals, I believe Anthony was a thoughter, I'm not sure. But, you know, especially looking at, what's her name, Emma, who was a young, university clever girl who went to Ukraine to help out and assist in the war of aggression by the Russians against the Ukrainians. So it's a lot, you know. It keeps rolling in. I mean, we can sit here and talk about it all. You know, I'm not wanting to sadden you guys so much, but you know, you have to bring it up because it's what happens, and they do it. But yeah, it's beyond belief, you know, that you would, as a country, target humanitarian aid units. I think if I was the person if those people came from the country I was in charge of, I think I would have gone ballistic at that point. You know, I think I'd gone ballistic if anybody would have done that, because it'd be beyond unacceptable. You know, of course it's hard to say because they are casualties of war, which is one thing, right? And you know, it's stuff. They have no morals, you know. Yeah, it's true. They have no morals. They have no idea of what morals even are. No, nothing, you know. It's ridiculous. Let's get you to plane news. We haven't gotten as much plane news, so let's get you on Flight Trader here. Trader, not trader. Trader. Radar. Flight Radar. I don't know why I say trader all the time. It's called Flight Radar. I don't know why I say trader. I keep saying Flight Trader. It's radar. Flight Trader. All right. Well, we have NATO 11 up here again. One of the planes we've seen here before. It's an E3 Command Center, electronic warfare, something like that. And we're not supposed to say what it's there for because the Russians are not supposed to know. But I'll let you in on a secret that the whole world knows, but the Russians seems to not know because they haven't spoken about it. They're there to assist Ukrainian ground, you know, attacks, HIMARS systems, giving, you know, exact locations of troops and movements and stuff like that. You know, it's NATO helping out Ukraine by literally telling them where the Russians are. You know, you're not supposed to know that, so shh, because the Russians seems to not know because they haven't commented on it, you know. The Russians, who are famous to comment on anything, you know, remotely across the red line, seems to have not commented on the factor that NATO is giving the Ukrainians a direct help by literally telling you where the troops are, which is one thing. So, and the reason why I believe they haven't told you yet is because if they do, and the citizens find out that the Russians are allowing NATO to simply help them, you know, kill their troops, and the Russians aren't doing anything about it, how are you going to look in the public's eye, you know? Because then you're really going to be realized how fucking weak you are, you know? We got a U.S. doomsday plane up. We have there's some tankers up and all that stuff. I want to point out something that happened yesterday, where a lot of misinformation was spread around the Twitter and all that stuff, where there was, this guy called New York Pepper who was spreading these, apparently to everybody. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was hearing. He was telling everybody that Russia had 8 doomsday planes up at the moment, and maybe even had 10 doomsday planes up, which is ridiculous, because there was 2 electronic warfare command center, and those 2 were up, and I have proof of that, because I did take I did share a tweet of it. Here we go. So this right here, it's these guys right here, and these guys are not the Russian doomsday planes. They are strategic command centers here. They are, well, after my belief, basically like an E3, right? They're basically like the E3s and the Russian versions of the E3s, or you know what the Air Force 2 is, right? You got the Air Force 1, and then you got those models that they call the Air Force 2, which is that's basically how these are the Russian versions, just command centers right here. Now, this is my response to somebody saying that New York Pepper had told everybody that there was going to be about 8, or 12 doomsday planes up. The Russian Airspace Forces has 4 whatever that is, 80 were developed from the Il-86 and wide-body passenger quantum development under the Soviet Union during the 70s. The plans, by the way, was drawn up in the 60s. So they were built in the 70s, drawn up in the 60s. And 3 of the original 4 Il-80s were thought to currently be in service. They only have 4, out of which I only think about 2 of them actually work. I believe only one of them may be in service. I think 2 of them actually only work. I'm not sure, but I'm very certain in my beliefs here that Russia does not have 8 doomsday planes. I don't believe what comes out of their mouths. It's ridiculous, It's pretty total, bullshit coming out from the mind from their oh god. It's complete bullshit. So really, this is why I don't believe that anybody's endorsing New York Pepper. He has no idea what he's talking about. He keeps talking about you heard about the fact that the Russians have 8 doomsday planes up. He looks at a plane that looks like somewhere in between, like what they call a doomsday plane. He says, "Oh, look at that, it's a doomsday plane." It's not. Russia doesn't have 8 doomsday planes. Russia has 4, in which I only think 2 of them is in service. In 1960s, they were drawn up and they were built in the 1970s. You see the plane. I showed you the plane. It has a star on it, a Soviet star. It's so ridiculous that they're spreading these. It's so ridiculous. Just want to point that out to you guys. DV, hello, welcome in. How are you? In Kursk region in Russia, there are reports about UAV attacks and explosions occurring in the city of Rilink. So here we have it. Look back here. Boom, there. Kind of a small explosion, but that could have been as much as a flashlight as anything. It was very small. Breaking. This is 30 minutes. Britain confirms that Russia targeted a civilian cargo ship in the Black Sea. Oh my god! Wow. Well, we're hearing about this. On August 23rd, Russian fired 2 Caliber missiles at a Liberian flag cargo ship. Ukraine were able to neutralize Russian missile strikes by Odessa, a curse belly for Britain's enhanced monitoring missions of Russian strikes on Ukrainian ports and weaponized grain. Okay. So the Ukrainians came into clutch. I'm great. I'm great. Russian man says what he thinks Russia should do to Ukrainians people. We've been saying this from the start. This isn't just a war. This isn't just Putin's war. Yeah. All right. NATO sees no sign that Russia was deliberately planning to attack the territory of Romania. G4 media writes about reference to a statement by NATO Deputy Secretary Mikhail John. I want to assure Romanian public and the public of neighboring territories that there is no cause for concern, John said. So, and it is true. I have been personally looking into that, and you have to remember that was confirmed by NATO and Britain. Yeah, it's a tense situation, and certainly seems to me that the Russians are claiming the Black Sea for themselves, and it's a classic case of are you willing to strike back, which is what the Russians are saying. Are you willing to risk lives to defy me? That's what Putin is saying, right? And to be honest with you guys, there isn't any reason to do this, because what we could just do instead, I mean, we could just, target, sorry, not target, we could just build bridges across from Moldova, from the side of Moldova to Romania, and Moldova could receive the grains from inside their territory, drive them across the country from Moldova and inside to Romania, where Romania then could ship them out. It's going to be a little bit of a longer process, but it would certainly benefit, I think, the Moldovans and Romanians a lot. You get a bunch of trucks down there. Right away, you build a lot of jobs doing that. We say we're in a wartime here. We need a lot of trucks going back and forward. We need to get this grain out of Ukraine. We'll give you a lot of money to make this happen. All right. Well, let's make this happen, right? So I think Ukraine needs to settle back on its naval presence and then just begin to drive these grain across the country, because Russia is not going to be daring to, as soon as they cross into Moldova, they're not, going to be attacked anymore. Because if the Russians attack a grain corridor going from Ukraine into Romania, and Romania then sells it out on their ships, or Ukrainian ships stationed in Romania, you're not going to be able to have the Russians go, we're going to target these ships. Because first of all, that's international waters. And many of those waters, and where they would be attacking those ships, would be inside the Romanian economic zone. An attack inside, which would then be deliberable, would cost Romania and NATO to say, this is our final straw. And the Russians are not going to pull that straw. Trust me. So we need to just, they have talked about building these bridges and stuff like that across these water waves, so that the Ukrainians could simply just drive across with the grain inside to Romania and just get these things out of there, just as easy and just as risk-free, way more risk-free. It's much harder to target a small car on the road than it is to target, massive. First of all, they would have to, drive. They would have to use drones for that, and drones are hard to even get into that point of Ukraine because of the vast net of air defense systems. So that's what they have to do. That's what they've been talking about. It's not just me pointing out this is what they have to do, but this is what they've been talking about for a while, and probably are going to commit to. So I believe that within next year we're going to see the or before that, or maybe even way before that, we're going to see the resuming of grains going out of Ukraine into Romania and then outside into the countries that are needing it the most. On with the news. Wind park in Chernobyl, which is so of the wind parks in the Chernobyl exclusion zone will provide electricity to nearly 1,000 households, which is one thing. Amazingly made here from the Germans, who are masters at this. We should probably, the Danish should probably head down there too, say, hey, you know, we're pretty good at this too. We don't need you. Come on, guys. In a video published by Ukrainian GUR about raids on Bukhara towns, Sea Rig near Crimea, they show a battle between free Ukraine small boats and Russian jet crew on boats managed to hit the jet and force it to flee.
Під час одного з бойових виходів російському винищувачу Су-30
Certainly share this. I'm not sure if I can show that. We'll watch it a bit later, I think. I'm gonna go. Can we show it? I can show it.
Під час одного з бойових виходів російському винищувачу Су-30 усе ж вдається вистежити наших бійців на катерах посеред відкритого моря. Зав'язується бій.
I hope I think it said it made it flee, which means it wasn't shot down, but it was fleeing, it appears to be. That is a suppressed weapon right there. Are they managing to get the jet to go away with a suppressed M4, or was that? How would the jet be afraid of a bunch of M4s? That's one I don't get. Maybe it's not just an M4. It sounds like a 50 cal up top, maybe. Maybe like a bigger gun up top there. Look at that. I mean, that is the dream, isn't it?
Російський літак намагається уразити наші катери гарматним та ракетним вогнем.
Planes trying to hit
Наші
boats
бійці відкривають вогонь у відповідь з усього наявного озброєння.
Shit, they got a big gun up top there. Look at that. Yeah, it looks like they got a 50 cal or something up top. That looks pretty big right there. So the standard they got on those big boats right there. They got a lot of guns in between these guys. The only problem is he can only shoot that way if it's in front of him. You know, he can't. I don't think he can swing that around, which is the problem. It's coming back there.
Врешті російський літак вдається вразити із ПЗРК.
Oh, look at that. Fighting force of the world.
Підбитий, він швидко тікає з поля бою.
I got a 50 cal in the back there as well. Look at that. Yes, you did everything. I did it. It was me. No, it was me. No, it was me. Russian field ammunition site gets hit by cluster munitions and detonates. Ooh, hello. Yeah, talking about the HIMARS, 486 HIMARS being delivered. It's pretty cool. Killed 2 other aid workers near Damat. I think this is the other. I think this guy is the guy that we are seeing. I think so. You got talking about the Emma and Anthony there that was hit. This is the guy who survived.
I want to tell them to send more of everything. Send more tanks to the army. Send more supplies to the army. Share videos out of this war. This war is not over. It's far.
just say something right here. Despite the fact that he's in, you know, what appears to be considerable pain and bandaged up and everything, the only thing on his mind is send more aid. He's not saying, oh, help me, help me. He's saying, we need to send more. We need to get more in. You know, if that's not hardcore, and that's not what a hero does, I don't know who does.
Ihr müsst mehr spenden. Der Krieg ist noch nicht vorbei, der Krieg wird schlimmer. Mehr Menschen sterben, immer mehr. Es hört nicht auf. Es hört nur auf, wenn wir
I
mehr
am not sure if they're covering up his face because of privacy reasons, or if he's damaging his face.
And you are volunteer, could you tell something about you? About you, who are you?
In German or...
Germany.
Ich bin 20 Jahre alt, komme aus der Stadt Soest. Ich gehe gerne auf Kirmes, gehe gerne auf Schützenfest. Bin ein ganz normaler Junge. Bin Sanitäter, habe mich hierzu entschieden, hier zu helfen, weil das, was hier passiert, Unrecht ist. Und Unrecht muss bekämpft werden. Ich freue mich, hier gegangen zu sein, auch wenn ich jetzt hier verwundet bin. Ich hoffe, ich werde kein Krüppel. Ich hoffe, ich kriege mein Gehör zurück. Aber das, was ich gemacht habe...
Bad burns and cut on his face. Oh, I see. All right. Yeah. A hero to the core. A hardcore hero, I'd say. You know, even in the face of complete, you know, decimation, he's still his only message is deliver more, give me more. I'll go, and I bet if he could walk, he'd be back. I bet if he could walk, he'd walk back onto the front lines and say, "I'm back." Well, sir, you can barely walk. I don't care. I'm back. I feel like he would walk into the battlefield with fucking an American eagle screech in the background, like an eagle flying over him or something like that. Not American, but like a German. He's German, right? Brazilian as hell, right? So this is a Russian ammo depot or somewhere that was blown up by cluster munitions here. Caused it to cook off. It looks like it may have been like on a foot of a truck or something in somewhere, or they were storing it on the road or whatever the hell they were doing there. Is that water? I don't know. Yeah, it looks like that's a big bad boy right there. Look at the shockwave as well. You can see the shockwave. Look at that. It's certainly the sign of a big amount of. Look at the shockwave. You can physically see the shockwave, which is insane. You know, there's not a lot of other times, but it's not every time you can actually see when a shockwave hits you right there. Take a look at that. Oh, damn it. Okay. There you go. Oh, damn it. Damn it. There you go. Take a look at that. That's the actual shockwaves that you're able to see. I think from the ground being simply pushed up by, you know, the dust and everything. It was just, that's insane. That's what the cluster munitions does. Oh, you guys are not even able to see that. Did I not share that right there? My bad, guys. I think I maybe put it back. My bad. No, okay. So we'll watch the whole thing again. I didn't show you. Sorry. So here you go. This is the explosion to that ammo depot there, and you can see it burning after the smoke clears. You can see the burn there. So that's definitely some ammunition that was cooked off. I didn't know you couldn't see. My bad. Yeah, but look at that. Look at the start right there as well. You can definitely see cluster munitions. As you can see them land. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the ground there. You can see them land before, and there you go. Look at that. Multiple hits on the ground, and then big explosion there. You can actually see the shockwave, and you can see the other cluster munitions there that hit the ground. It's a lucky hit. Well, I'd say lucky, but that's the great thing about the cluster. They spread so much, you know. So you can see the shockwave alone, you know, which is insane. So that's a big explosion right there. It's not every time you get to see the shockwave. Ukraine has retaken 2 strategic drilling platforms off the Crimean coast, occupied by Russia since 2024 and used for military purposes during the full-scale invasion. Holy shit! Really? We've done that? This Ukrainian special forces regains control to 2 Black Sea. Oh, the drilling rigs in the ocean. So that's the video we saw before of those guys in those boats there. That jet definitely was sent out to defend it. So they're now actually taking back those drilling wicks. I said it in the start of the video here. We're probably going to see more naval action. I said it in the start of the video. I thought that the best action for Ukraine was to go more naval, you know, which is where the Russians are lacking. Well, you get it. Well fucking done. Well, we got a lot of stuff there. Well done, Bush. Well fucking done, mate. They do it once, they do it again. So we have POTUS here talking about President Biden. I was here at where a Navy lieutenant commander by the name of John McCain was shot down in Seahawk. Oh, that's not about that. I think no, that's not about that. My bad. See if he made anything. Today we remember the 2,979 precious lives stolen from us on 9/11, and reflect on all that was lost in the fire and the ashes that September morning. The American story itself changed on this day 22 years ago, but what could not and will not change is the character of this nation. That's from Joe Biden here, and the strong message here. Never forget. And the two lights that are sticking up there, I assume you know what that means. You know, the two towers there, World Trade Center, is commemorating that. And yeah, we have had our moment of silence, but it's still a heavy, hard thing. You know, I always kind of feel a bit bad when I even think about it. You know, those attacks were horrific. I think they trump anything really. They really trump anything that happened later, you know.
Instead is heading to Alaska to commemorate 9/11 from a military base in Anchorage in a break from
going today of presidents since I has been on one of those sites, but so he's going to a military base in Alaska, which is breaking from the tradition. He's actually gone to a base in Anchorage or something like that, in Alaska, where he's breaking traditions. So ever since 9/11, has been at one of these sites, but the president. So
tradition. All right, where is the president going to be today? Every president since 9/11 has been at one of these sites, but President Biden,
one of the sites, I think, is one of the, I don't know, maybe at the place itself, or yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then you get the stupid idiots that, you know, then they have to come in, and they of course have to go, where's the plane wreckage? You know, the plane hit the ground, and where's the plane wreckage? Where is it? You know, oh, it was false. Oh, no. And then, you know, we got Lee. And Lee actually was there, KLW World News. If you didn't know, Lee, I think his picture may have been himself actually making this picture. But Lee Wheelbugger was there on the fateful day, picking up body parts. I've seen the videos of him showing off that. So these are pictures of that. But, you know, people are like, where's the plane wreckage? Do you really think that a plane that came crashing down from the sky, what do you think? You're gonna see a wreckage of the fucking plane that's left? No, it was smolderized because it crashed, you know, 1,000 kilometers an hour into a fucking building. You know, there's not gonna be anything left of it. The fact that they found anything of it is impressive. So, you know, if you're anybody who's in here saying to me that this is a conspiracy theory, anything like that, I don't even care. Today, I'll ban you. I may re-ban you. You know, if you keep saying it, and if you come back one day, sure, you can come back. But today I really don't care. You know. Peter, what are you? Peter, what are you saying that? Don't. Hey, I'm kind of gonna need some of you mods. I don't know how many mods that's in here, but if somebody comes in and says something, you know, like that, please. Russian MTLB with 2x 25mm naval gun installed. I purpose to call this the modification MTLBS, where S stands for stability. So check out the latest. You going to Lolo? All right. Well, yeah. All right. Check out the latest Russian equipment here. This is why Russia, you know, is certainly gonna win. Check out just the amazing Russian equipment here, and of course the S in the MTLB stands for stability. Check it out. Check it out. Ball. Da, 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 da. What is he? Oh, you're not gonna hit shit with, dude. You're not gonna hit shit with that. What are you firing? What do you think you're gonna hit with that? Look at that. So fucking stupid. They're so fucking stupid. What are you gonna hit with that? What are you gonna hit with that? What are you gonna hit with that? You know, one shot is gonna be the first shot, right? Is gonna hit what you want. Maybe the second shot and every other shot is going to be in the ground or, you know, miles away from where you want to hit it because it's shaking so much, you know. Where's that gun? You know, when you're firing off the 50 cals mounted on a boat, you saw them you just saw them fire off 50 cals mounted on a boat, and that was more stable, didn't shake. That was Ukrainian boats, right? Fired off a 50 cal from a boat and it didn't shake like that. That's on a ground vehicle on the ground, shaking like you've never seen it before, pushing the car down. Why are they born this way? I don't get it. I don't get how can you be, you know, so ignorant to yourself? I mean, I just don't get what the fuck did they think was gonna happen. Because why did they mount it? First of all, why did they mount it in the fucking back? You know, the more you shoot, the more you're going to push it back. The more you're going to push it down, you know? Oh, how great. Okay, so we have another news on this. There was some news earlier, some time ago, where we were talking about these 200,000 conscripts being called up. They're now calling up more here. Mass forced mobilization of population to begin soon in Russia. Plans to recruit 400 to 700,000 people, general staff. This is not from some store. This is not from some random person. This is Slava Ukraine. Ukraine news updates. This is a very trusted insight. I've used it multiple times. Due to the catastrophic losses of the occupiers, it is expected that a massive forced mobilization of the population will begin soon in Russia Federation and the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. It should be noted that about 40,000 residents of Chechen Republic are also planned to be drafted, who are likely to be used as barrier units behind Russian troops, the statement said. At the same time, among the population of Moscow and St. Petersburg, the figures for the planned mobilization against remain minimal. Because, of course, they're not going to move people out of Moscow or St. Petersburg. Because when people go to Russia, they don't want the areas to be empty. That makes sense, right? They're taking them from the outside. 400 to 700,000 soldiers. It's a meat grinder. That's what they want to throw to the fucking front. And if they add to that up, right? You know, more Ukrainian fertilizer. You add to that up, right? You know, you may have close to 1 million Russians on that front there, you know? Yeah, it's insane. And I don't know how many soldiers are at the front at the moment. We're probably nearing the million amount here who's been at the front or, you know, are close to being at front. It is, you know, beyond insanity that's what they're doing. Now, keep an eye on where these thousands of conscripts are going to go, you know. And this is my, I wouldn't say worry, but you also have to remember that despite how shit a army is, thousands of volume of all of these are eventually gonna, you know, mean something. I'm not saying this means that they're gonna break through. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying that this means they're probably, you know, gearing up for something bigger is my idea right now. I don't know why, but I just think so. Yeah. KGB of Belarus claims detaining free saboteur cells of security service of Ukraine. Oh, hello. Really? You got like a gun as well? They had like a secret suppressed gun? So it's textbook fucking spy right here. Look at that. It said this is what they found, and that the KGB obtained free saboteur cells of security service of Ukraine. So they're spies. You know, Russians aren't the only one putting spies. Ukrainians are too. Top secret. Can't tell you about it because I don't know about it. United States P-8 Poseidon heading out right now towards what I believe is going to be Kaliningrad. Now we don't know if the implications of yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, you know, because yeah. Wow. Yeah, so it's also reported by Flash, so it doesn't get more real than this, does it? I don't know how I missed this. It doesn't get more real than this right here. General Staff expects the mass force mobilization of population will begin in Russia and the temporarily occupied territory. Now, this would mean that Russia would have to call, you know, it says that they have this partial mobilization. If they're now calling up 400 to 700,000, you know, this would mean a mass mobilization, not a partial mobilization. They would have to call up, you know, mass mobilization because 700,000 people is mass mobilization. That's no longer partial. So I don't know if they're going to make an official statement, but they may actually call up more, you know. It should be noted that they are also planning to summon about, so we're talking about a max of 740,000. We're talking maybe 600,000, maybe above that. You know, they want to certainly get as many as they can. Republic would probably be used as barricades behind the Russian troops. At the same time, the mobilization is again minimal among the population of Moscow and St. Petersburg, which is one thing they always want to, because they're not going to draw away people from some of the most, you know, you get it. Oh, fucking Christ. Oh, that's not good. It's not good. Oh, we have air raids turning on here in Kharkiv, it appears. Yeah, so reserve personnel, 900,000 Ukrainian reserve personnel is what they're talking about now. So I still think that I'm not sure if the Ukrainians are going to be outnumbering, but I still think that if Ukrainians were to match these numbers, they would probably very much be able to at least somewhat match these numbers. And you know, how trained are these troops going to be? I don't think they're going to be remotely trained. So yeah. An E6 heading out towards the Pacific, or is doing rounds about just outside California here. Boeing 737. Yeah. So not a lot of under air activity, special air activity going on. Some reconnaissance, but nothing special. We have a oh, we got a P8 that's been doing some special flight. It appears. That's weird. I think 88 is fucking up on that one. Because I don't think it went over. I don't think. So look at this. 88 is it's not always the best right here. So this is where the P8 is now, and it says that it's been over here and it's been over here. It flew over Ukraine. It flew over Kaliningrad. It flew everywhere, guys. This P8 was everywhere today, and it's been flying for what I believe 48 hours. No, but yeah. So okay. Yeah, we got a P8 heading out. It's heading out. It's just outside the capital here of Denmark here, or well, not just outside. Well, it's heading outside to the Baltic Sea now, and heading out where I believe it's going to be surveillancing is Kaliningrad. Is usually where they up that surveillance with the P8 to keep an eye on submarines or just general tracking of maybe naval activity in general. Called the Sub Hunter. Certainly want to keep the Russians in check, you know. Now, how long this mobilization of 400 and 700,000 troops, you know, how long is that going to be? Long, but you know, we don't know. We know that they wanted the 200,000 to have been called up by November. Now the plan is to call up more, which means they're heading towards, you know, calling them all up would probably take close to a good 3 to 4 months, maybe more. You know, they're probably going to give out notices, and then these people have to come to these areas and have to get, you know, and you might think the whole idea behind it, they're going to be trained. No, they're probably not. If we know Russia right, they're going to be given a chance to fire off a gun once or twice to maybe try and empty a magazine. You know, because the shortages of the Russian army is insane. So they need all the bullets they can have. So they're now, you know, so that's what they want. Obama's also made a tweet today. We honor memory of the brave souls who lost. We lost 22 years ago. We may always remember their stories, the courage of our first responders, and sacrifice of our troops made to protect us in the first years that followed. Yeah. A UH helicopter of Greek Army, the 1st Army Aviation Brigade Station Air Base, floating around after the base was flooding during heavy rainfalls. Oh, look at that. Not great. Why are they still at the fucking... Why didn't they get him out of there? Hopefully they're going to be able to survive that. Alright, well, I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you so much for stopping by. I think we got through most of what I wanted to get through today. There's not much else happening around the world other than, you know, more deals and all that stuff. Breaking news, of course, this mass mobilization here. We may get a message from Putin that we're certainly going to be seeing, perhaps, but I'm going to end off the stream here as there's not much else to really talk about here. I think we've gotten through most of it, at least what I wanted to get through to today. So have a good night, and yeah, good night.